Oh, how's that? Just hit record on my first series on me giving my insight. Although it's not perfect, I do have a wealth of knowledge, and I've decided to embrace my YouTube-ness. It's something I never ever thought I would be doing. But I've been doing a lot of self-work lately and kind of had a paradigm shift and realized that I enjoy inspiring people. I always have enjoyed it, but I've kind of had this block up in regards to, I don't want to be seen as an influencer, all this sort of stuff. But why not? I enjoy inspiring. I feel as though I have something to give. Why don't I give it? So I'm letting go of everyone's expectations of this or that, and even my own expectations. I'm doing what feels good for me, and doing these POVs makes me feel good, and there is no battle with that anymore. I've accepted that I'm now a YouTuber. So with that, I've been designing some playlists which are either more tutorial based or, I don't want to give too much away right now, but what we are doing in regards to today's one is what I first really found so helpful for me when I first jumped onto my journey of photography. And back then I was, as we do, we jump on YouTube, was looking on YouTube a lot, and I don't really find, and I still haven't found in regards to this topic, something that really grasps it and applies it in a way that can be seen firsthand in regards to, be it street photography, fashion photography, architecture, and design elements, which is what today's is about, is used in architecture, graphic design, illustration. The fundamentals are used within any creative realm, and it's literally what makes anything look appealing. And so today we're going to go through not only the different areas, be it lines, texture, color, these sort of things, but we're going to understand the two sub areas within that, of it being harmony or it being in contrast with each other. So with these two definitions, it adds such a different realm to what these areas of lines and shape and craziness is. So without further ado, that's the intro. It's a bit lengthy, but you get the gist of it. We're moving into a new realm. I'm stepping up a notch, and I'm so glad to have you along the journey. So if you're excited like me, hit the thumbs up. Please let people know that if you find this informative, but hey, no expectations. Let's have some fun and let's get into it. So nature is a great way to see design elements within its own natural environment. With the bark with texture, the opposite would be, the flow of water and how smooth it is. There are so many patterns within nature. There's not even patterns, just the colours, lines, shape, all of these add to the design elements. And kind of what we're going to go through today. Down the track we're going to go through other things that affect how great photos can be. The Fibonacci ratio. I should put my phone on silent on these things. Let me just quickly do that. And the rule of thirds, all these sort of things add to how great the photograph can be and the impact of design elements as such. But because there is so much to go through, we're just going to hone in and sort of stick to the basics today. So with that, our first thing we're going to touch on is texture. But before that, I don't want to assume, I actually want to go into the definitions of what what contrast and harmony actually are. So harmony is a pleasing arrangement of parts, whereas contrast, qualities noticeably different from one another. So it's never good to assume. So just putting those definitions down to basics, let's actually go into seeing, first off, its texture out in the environment, so you guys can see firsthand the difference between contrast and harmony within texture, and then we get out and play and sort of see some of the areas as well. Let's get going. We all know the basis of what texture is. Now, texture when in harmony with itself is texture with the same texture applied within a different material. Texture when it's in contrast with itself could be a smooth texture mixed with a rough texture. Now, texture is a really good one to play with, purely so much variance to what we actually get with texture. So here is a great example of how sunlight can play an effect on texture itself. The sunlight's quite direct on the texture here, which when shot front on, there is no shadows, which means there is no depth in the element of the texture. It makes it flatter and you aren't obtaining the maximum capacity of texture. If you look around the corner here, because there is a variance in how the sun is hitting the texture itself, it means that we are now getting a texture which has shadows, and because it has shadows, it gives the depth that we are looking for in texture. The direct light, but it's also being shot side on. Having direct light side on gives more crevice to the texture itself, which means you get depth. When it's shot straight on, you don't get the depth, which allows it to be more of a smoother texture. But when you are then looking into shade straight on, the texture itself becomes basically flat because there is no direct light to give that depth. So as you can see, guys, you've got 4 variants here to give you a variety of what texture looks like. Now, it's all good and great being out in the environment and seeing this instance texture as a design element firsthand. But what I really want to try and emphasise is bringing what we've learned here into the images that we sort of find for ourselves, inspiring what we hope to be one day. Within the image, we all look at inspiration as part of what we do. Dissecting that inspiration, it helps to sort of see within those images, breaking them down for what the elements are, because then once you break it down, you can then apply it to your own photography. What I want to do for each of these sections is actually go through and apply them to the some inspiration that I found over time. So first up, some of these images we're going to go through are harmony images within texture. So Ansel Adams is a photographer that you may know from way back in the day. He's one of the first photographers who was really well known for landscape photography. What I see within this image here is harmony within the textures itself. So you've got kind of a matted texture within the sky, but that's also brought through within the snow and the cliff faces, and the similarity is also the same within the trees as well. So because there is such a consistency in that texture within a lot of his photographs really, then it enables harmony within those textures. Same within Dorothy Lang, another incredible American photographer early back in the day. The main focus of this image is the bird, as you can see. The bird is like kind of a rough texture of itself, and that also is in harmony with the grass itself, so hence harmony and texture. Ethan James Green, incredible photographer. I've been lucky enough to be on set with him quite a bit. He is not only a genius and a really good guy, he's a master at, I think, utilising textures and sort of, not only textures, but a lot of different design elements. You'll see him a bit throughout this because he's a really good example for us to sort of pick and pull apart. Example of his, of the dog, the skin texture of the dog is actually super similar to what we have with the background. The only really determining difference within this is the tonal range and the shape, really. The textures are so similar that if you didn't have that definition of density along with the shape, then it's basically one flat image, really. So Ethan works with some incredible stylists, which always admire me when I'm out on set with them as well, but their ability to play with contrast or harmony within textures is, I think, what gives his images an extra mile as well. He has a great way to place the styling or whatever in certain environments, which then more emphasis to the main focus. So within this one here, we've got the white jacket is super fluffy, as we love fluffy things. The texture within that is also in harmony of texture within the hair as well. Again, another image of Ethan's is quite a unique image in a way because there's so much harmony within texture here. The dress, the trees in the background, there's in a way a lot going on. And in a way, the only way that you can actually see a difference of her face is because of the white simplicity around her face. Without that, she would basically be lost within the image. When there is so much texture going on, which is a great thing, you also need to still give value to the main focus, which generally is a face. So if there's a lot of texture going on, you need to kind of keep its simplicity around where you want to draw the focus as well. Will Davidson, he's an Australian photographer, actually might be Kiwi. Anyway, he's based in Australia. His Photography seems to tell a story, which is what's always drawn me to it. What I really love about this image here is the depth of the textures as well. So be it the floral dress combined with I don't even know what those plants are, but they're rough, spiky as such, and there's a lot that seems to be going on within there. So those elements of the texture within the plants and plant design within the dress. George's photographer I worked with a lot actually, studio manager with him for a while. Back in Australia, the texture within the dress and how his background here is a canvas. It's got a similar sort of texture within it. It creates that harmony of what we're looking for within texture harmony. When you're thinking of harmony, it's about the overall image having textures within itself, because when we move into contrast, Ethan's, this example here, the texture, the dress really stands out purely because it is on a soft background. The texture within the lower part of the dress has a bit of movement, so it brings your eyes into the dress itself. And overall, with the black jacket as well and the slickness of the hair, it is such a contrast in the textures within the image. It's so good at playing with textures, be it without clothes either. So here's another image of his. What draws me into this image, there's a lot going on within the background, the bouquet, the hair, the jeans, and then the simplicity of just his skin, the smoothness of it, and the definition is what just draws you into his body figure, and just the way that he's shaped as well sort of makes you inquire, to more of wanting to know more of his background. This image here I love. I don't know who shot it, so if you do know, let me know and I'll put it in the old descript below. Great example of texture. Yes, there is harmony within the hair and these incredible sleeves, but I don't think that's enough to actually define it as a harmony. In my opinion, this here is more of a contrast because of the skin is so smooth, and then we're looking at the sleeves, which are just this incredible barragement of textures. Lachlan Bailey, incredible photographer. This series here that he did, I think is a great example of using fashion and contrast within textures. So obviously the background, we've got a lot of tussocks and desert elements, but a contrast within that is the silk shirt that she's wearing. Using contrast to emphasize sort of certain fashion pieces is a great way to go about a fashion shoot, such as this with George's again. So plain and simple background with a dominant sort of checkered outfit is obviously a contrast in textures. Here we've got an example of David Bailey, famous image, no doubt you guys have seen it before. What really makes this image stand out as a contrast to me is there's a lot of texture within, be it the bird and the fluffy ball on the side of her head, but that combined with such a plain background and the silkness of the headscarf itself is a contrast, so it really brings attention to the main focus of the image, which is the bird and the fluff ball on the side of her head. Dan Madison as well, texture within the smallest elements here crossing the face. If you are able to have that lit in a way where you can see each individual hair in comparison to the smooth skin, obviously it gives a bit of contrast there. Mario Sorrenti, great example of texture within the clothing again and combined with texture within the hair. Plain and simple background, you don't need to overcomplicate it, just think about what item you are trying to emphasize, and if you want to give a contrast to the background. So bad with names. We all know this photographer, incredible Patrick Delametier. My apology, I need to get better at all this. First names are easy to pronounce, but we're basically going global here. Patrick's image here is incredible, such detail and texture within the outfit, and again on such a simple background. The hard lighting as well is actually really emphasised the texture, so great example of sort of what I was showing on the texture wall at Barbican. So yeah, the certain way you light things is obviously going to bring out more texture, so he's done a great job of this. Vivian Meyer, incredible street photographer, really good at using design elements to sort of really push forward her imagery as well. Love this one here of using a reflection which shows the texture within the trees. So the streets itself have so much texture, and that's what she was great at being able to pick up as well. So the smoothness of the New York streets here, but in comparison to the chair being burnt out and the roughness of the bin as well, was kind of really adding. Steve McCurry, another great example of using design elements in basically every form to its best capacities. This image here, the texture within the skin, it just makes you feel, you know, what has this person really been through. It's so good with texture as well, and it comes naturally in a way because the locations that he's traveling to and the people that he's sort of photographing, they all have a unique story within their face. And as you can see here, the real texture that we're looking at is within the skin. That's in contrast with clothing. You know, the redness is a lot smoother, and be it the black of the background as well. There is a contrast within that. The next one we're going to look at is lines. So lines are a fun one, and they're kind of difficult in a way as well, because if you are slightly off in perspective, you can really notice it within photographs as well. So symmetry is a huge thing, and I'll do another tutorial about that down the track. With harmony of lines, you've got lines within a photograph which are all the same sort of lines. Could all be straight lines, could all be curved lines. There's not a much variance within the spectrum of lines. You know, they're all very straight, or they're very curved if you were looking at harmony. If you're looking at contrast within lines, within images, you'll have something that's very straight, and then you'll have something that's a right angle or a curve or something completely opposite in regards to straightness. Then you are then looking at contrast. Let's go out into the environment again, have a wee look-sees and sort of see what I mean. Challenge, eh? Follow me on Instagram, guys, if you want to follow the handstand journey. In the stories is where I post the continual updates and progression. We're now going to look at some images which sort of dictate sort of contrast and harmony within lines. First of all, we'll do harmony. So who we got here? Helmut Newton, incredible photographer, one of the greats. Here is a good example of harmony, because the main focuses of what we're actually looking at within this image is her incredibly long legs and the crutches that she is wearing as well. So although there is a small curve on the right hand side, everything else within this image is a straight line. The black outfits are basically straight. Irving Penn here, incredible image, Vogue cover back in the day. Good example of, you know, lines that aren't necessarily too straight but are within harmony with each other, because there's many lines that aren't too straight within the image. So be it the ring on her finger, the eyeshadows, and even the way that her fingers are sort of add to that harmony sort of effect. Here we've got Bernice with a image inside Grand Central Station. Incredible image. Like, I remember the first time I went through Grand Central, I really wanted to see something of this light, but of course they don't smoke inside Grand Central anymore, so that's what gave this effect. You know, you need, you know, something within the air to sort of give the beams of light. So incredible photo, and again just a great example of harmony within images. Dorothy Lang again, so small curvature within the ground here, very consistent across the basis is the main emphasis of what we're looking at in that example. I would call it harmony. Looking at contrast, again Vivian Maier, great one to look at for street photography. This one here, we've got contrast within a few of the lines, because the walking stick, which is a element we're obviously drawn into here, is straight, and then the subject himself is curved, which is just, you know, the angularness of his posture and body. So those two elements are in contrast, and then you've got the lines within the shirt that he's wearing as well, which adds even more to the contrast within the lines. Helmut Newton, this image here, iconic image of his, is a contrast with lines as well. So we've got straightness and the curvatures within these lines here. It's a bit of a, is it harmony, is it contrast? You guys are free to make your own mind up, but I think it's a really good example of contrast within the lines. Again, Irving Penn, you've got lines all over the place here. It's kind of horizontal and then sort of more on a diagonal. The textures themselves sort of add to different sort of sides of it as well. So again here, Ethan, we've got on set with Bella. Man, that was a cool day. She's actually super cool, really cool chick. I was quite surprised. Down to earth, should I say. But the lines that she has within her body here, you've got some curvatures within her hips, legs are straight, the arms are also straight within a horizontal degree. I would call that more of a contrast, because the straight lines are at right angle compared to each other, and you've got the curvature of the hips as well. Similarly, this image here, which we had come up for texture, you can also see how images can embody sort of two different types of elements. Another shot of George's here is a good example of contrasting lines. So you've got the curvature of the exposed buns, and then you've got the red hand, which is a straight line. So that's a good summary of lines. Straight, we've got curved, how they interplay with each other. Another thing which is quite similar to lines is, whoa, the sun's just popped out. Let me just change that exposure. Oh, I should set this to auto instead of manual. So direction is a design element. A line is straight up. Across we've got sort of a right angle coming through here. That would be considered more of a contrast, but if a direction is in harmony of itself, it could be a line which is like this, a line which is slightly across, and another line which is keep going down. A good example as we here is a flower. Lines and shapes which are, you know, similarly in what way they are facing would then be considered a direction which is more harmony. So let's have a look at this more so out in nature. Oh, this day I got rained out on. Right guys, now I know you can't see me at the moment. I have set the camera as a silhouette because I want to expose the background, what we've got here. We're down at London Eye, and I've purposefully cut out the composition of the circle of the London Eye purely because I want to emphasize the lines within London Eye. So what we have now is what I would call a harmony in lines, because the lines themselves are going around in a even pattern. Now if we were to look at the composition including the trees, which apparently are spring but we are more looking at winter, the chaos of the trees in the front, we've got all sort of crazy angles and lines that are, you know, not quite straight anymore, and they're also just going off in every which way direction. So if we are looking at the composition as a whole, now we've got more of a contrast within the lines. So as I've been saying, what we need to consider within any image that we look at is what are the main elements. Are we only focusing in onto one area, or are we looking at everything as a whole? Wow, it's really starting to rain. Let's continue on. So you can see I got a little bit rained out there, but nothing deters me as a strong Kiwi sort of being out in the rain. I actually find it really fun, but you know, equipment has its limits as well. So let's get into seeing direction within some images. So we might do harmony again to start out with. Henry Carter Bresson, this image here is, I would call it harmony within direction, because you're looking at the stairs, sort of, your eye really flows with this image, and I think it's what makes it such an iconic sort of image is, for me, my eyes initially start at the stairs, and the direction of the stairs flows you around to where the person is on their bike. So there's a lot going on in this image. Everything flows around to that, and that's purely because of the small increments of direction throughout the image sort of leads you to the main subjects. Martha Cooper, incredible photographer from back. She documented a lot of the graffiti scene in New York. Really cool documentaries out there I recommend watching. Anyway, this image here, we've got a lot of harmony within the direction because the lines of the top of these carriages are all within the same direction. Guy Bodine, cool image here, harmony within direction, because if you compare the flower example, you can see that her arms and her body are all quite consistent within the way that she is standing. Which, in contrast to Amin's image here, we've got the legs which are sort of kind of protruding out from each other. Another shot of Ethan's, great example of it when it continues to go around in the direction of things. So here you can see that because there are so many limbs sticking out and they are going within the same sort of degree of angles, that would be considered more of harmony. Likewise here for Avedon's image, great example of the limbs sort of being a consistency. Same here with Beck Lorimer. Oh, Beck, you are a legend. So Beck is Australian, and honestly the reason why I was able to do so well in America, shout out to you, Beck. She's put me in touch with a lot of incredible assistants in the US, and she also got me on my first job over there as well. Everyone was taking the mickey out of me because it was my first time I've seen Ms. Liberty. Oh my god. Fun day on set. So Jake Terry, incredible photographer based in Australia, really good at telling stories. This was a cool shoot. We were on a great example of harmony within the direction of limbs as well. So I can't remember the snake's name. Again, just sort of showing example of the limbs being within consistency of direction, and be it the limbs itself or the snake, sort of really emphasizing the harmony within itself. Good times on set. Anyway, contrast. Again, Ethan's great at utilizing these design elements. So the way that these guys are standing is kind of in contrast, you know, especially with the beam poles. I don't know what they're called behind, but because that's all kind of a dominant piece of the image, I would call that more of a contrast in the right angles. Similarly here, you've got contrast within angles purely because of the limbs are so entangled with what the background is, being squares. And then you've got, you know, right angles within the body posture as well. Similarly, George's shot here of, limbs coming out from every angle and, you know, not really a consistency within anything. Yeah, likewise, this one here of his. So although there are limbs coming out from every angle, which could be considered consistent, the contrast, I think, of the harmony within the swimsuit, which is also quite a dominating factor within this image, makes it more of a contrast. Same as Jake's image here. The way she's standing, and like, yes, it's all black, but the background itself to me is quite dominating. Like, it's what kind of makes this image as well. So you've got slight bend within the legs, but the horizon line makes it more of a contrasting image. Similarly, this image here is actually his Mrs. Matilda element here, direction, is in contrast in regards to, you know, the main focus we're looking at is the coat because it is so dominating, but it's nothing without the background of where she is as well. So there's such a contrast within the direction of these, and Steve McCurry does it so well every time. Again here, such a contrasting way all the boats are displayed within this image. A great example of leading lines as such, because your eyes go from the front of the image all the way through to the back, just from the way that he's composed it and the direction of the boats. Steve does it so, I can't wait to travel now borders are opening up. So next thing we're going to move on to is colour. I've got so many great examples of harmony and contrast as well. You know, you could dress in all pink or all greys, or when you are wearing just one colour, you're looking at harmony. And contrast obviously is when you are the opposite spectrum of the other colours that are within the environment. Okay, before we go for a wee wander, I think it's important that we actually go over the colour wheel just a little bit. I may go into full depth about this maybe a bit down the track. The colour wheel itself is something that we should kind of have a grasp on, because it helps you understand what colours are within harmony and what colours are in contrast of each other. So lots of research out there on YouTube which you can sort of go and have a look at now, but just for a brief understanding. So our primary colours, which are what make up, you know, the form of every colour basically, it's just a mix and variance of. Primary colours are red, blue and yellow. The secondary colours, which are contrast or the complete opposite of, you've got green, orange and purple within them. These colours are the basis of all colours really. A mix of, you know, primary and secondary colours is what sort of creates all colours as we know on the spectrum. But I just quickly wanted to go over this and just sort of pop a diagram in there so that you can sort of see within a colour wheel. If you looked at the completely opposite side of the colour that you initially looked at, that will then show you your contrast in that particular colour. Any colours that are adjacent either side of the initial colour that you looked at would then be more of a harmony colour. So let's go for that wander.
Right guys, so we got a little bit rained out there at the London Eye doing the lines. So what I've done is come into Leek Street, which is an incredible fall colour. So I've chosen this walk here. Predominantly it's full of grey, which then means that the colour is emphasised within it. So this green triangle that we have here is, you're really, really drawn into it because there's minimalism colour within everything else within this frame. Green and red are a contrast and such, so your eyes are kind of drawn into here along with the yellow. And these pink outlines really, really emphasise sort of the contrast and tones we have here. Again, eyes are drawn into it because of the colour tones of grey that we have around. Adding colour into your images is a great way to emphasise what you're actually trying to portray. Depending on what you want to do with an image, using colour to bring the person's eye into what you're actually aiming to have attention drawn into is a design element that can allow you to really bring to life. We're going to go Leek Street here, I'm kind of going to zoom into some tones and kind of just show you how colour can really be impactful and make the most of this beautiful scene and without the rain. So guys, with me!
Nice and cozy in here. Alright, so straight back into it, and guys, I hope you're enjoying this. I don't know if I'm waffling too much or if it's actually helping you guys understand design elements or breaking them down in a way that you can sort of apply them to inspirational images. Pop a comment in the box below just so I can sort of gauge some feedback. You know, as I've said, this is literally the first time I'm doing these sort of tutorial videos, so any feedback is appreciated. Let's continue on. Harmony within colour, great place to start. And who better to start with than Steve McCurry? As I mentioned before, incredible for colour, and this image here is so powerful. And I think what is really powerful about it is the use of colour. So you've got a lot of reds within this and the yellow, which is quite close together on the harmony of colour spectrum, but it adds that danger element. You know, he's wearing a hard hat. Why is he wearing a hard hat? And then we quite often relate red to flame or danger or stop or these sort of things, so the fact that these are used in conjunction with each other adds more to the story of the image. This one here, Karen's image, very yellow all round. It would be the most dominating factor within this image, the yellows and reds. Otherwise you could have used this image for the design elements of lines, shape, or even direction in reality. David Sims, incredible photographer. I don't think there's anyone really out there like him. Basically shoots everything in camera, which is what I think is amazing with him. It all kind of looks like natural light generally, not overly lit. And this image here, you can see within the harmony, is the colours are very similar. You've got red and orange and yellow within it. Everything else is basically muted out and black, but the colour is the most dominant. Ben Lutchford, incredible photographer, does all the Gucci campaigns, a big fan over here. I think the way that him and Alex have reinvented the Gucci brand has just been incredible. Anyway, this is an older image of his, and the tonal range within it, be it the pinks, the greens, pinky browns of the beach, and then the blues, like they're all kind of within that same pastel-like spectrum, so I think that's why I've added it into the harmony realm. And even Mazel's image here, most dominating factors, blue wig and the ring creates that harmony within the colour. Likewise here of Harley Weir's image, the eyeshadow and just the pop of colour underneath is quite harmonious. In comparison to some contrast images, we've got again Sims here. This no doubt would have been shot on set. This is what I'm talking about. He is so good at creating natural light. So pastel colours again, quite close together on the harmony spectrum of colours. Although it's close, you do have the pinks and greens, which are more of a contrast. The reason it all looks close is because of the desaturation of everything within this. Nadine's image here, you've got quite a contrast within the pinks and the blues and the oranges and the greens going on here, so kind of all angles of the spectrum. This image here, I don't know if it's Glenn's, but I'm 99% sure it would be. It's definitely his style of shooting, and it's for a Gucci campaign, putting two and two together. Contrasting because you've got reds and greens, which obviously are quite opposites within the spectrum. Mario Testino's image here of, I think it was Kate Moss. Can't remember. Yeah, it is. It looks like it has to be. You've got the red and green again within the eyeshadow and the lips, and blue's also popping out as a opposing colour to sort of the yellow toneness within the skin. Mikkel's image here, I think is so cool. Really like the grading in this image. It's such a conflicting image because it's something that should be so sweet and innocent, but yet so horrific and horrifying, really. You've got the warm tone, the yellows and reds, but also that green sickliness as well, is giving the contrast and sort of making it what it is. And of course, Steve McCurry, no shame in throwing him in here yet again for some contrast in colour. Contrast within the yellows within the inside of the building, even the outside of the building, is then in contrast to the blues, which are sort of more to the left-hand side, be it the water and the sky, even the sign itself. Of course, his famous image here, those incredibly stunning eyes, of course in contrast to the red that she's wearing, which just sort of helps the impact of colour really stand out. Likewise, the colour within this image. So he is obviously covered in red after a festival as such, and then just him standing against a green wall makes it so contrasting and such a unique image, and powerful at that. As I said before, like colour really can emphasise an image, and using colour, be it in contrast or harmony, there are so many different ways to manipulate what you want to tell within a story of an image purely by colour itself. Try and break down what you're looking to push out into the story within your photographs that you're doing. Like, yes, you can do it to one image, but I think telling a story in a way needs to be captured within a few images, be it for a magazine or it's spread across a store. I think using these design elements that we're going through are really going to help sort of emphasize the main focuses of each image. We're going to move into shape now. When we're looking at harmony within shape, choose a shape, be it a circle, and then you have multiple circles within that image. A contrast to that would be circles and squares and triangles within the same image. So again, let's go for a wee wander.
Here we've got another incredible example within architecture and the surroundings we have out in the street of shape and harmony in this instance. So we've got an oval here which is quite similar to the building behind it, which is another oval sort of shape. If we were to have in contrast more of a dominant rectangle or a triangle as such, then it would be considered more of a contrast in regards to shape.
Now, London's skyline is an incredible example of seeing different shapes within architecture. Here you can see triangles, you've got rectangles, you've got curvatures, you've got right angles. And when you strip back what the textures of the glass or anything like that, you can really see the shapes just for what they are. Looking on a larger scale of things and more into a smaller sort of areas as well, or different skylines all around, you can see how these different lines either can give a contrast or a harmony within the elements of scenes that you're looking at. And it's everywhere. It doesn't matter what skyline you're looking at, be it just the shard and the simplicity of the tip of that, or it doesn't have to be architecture. It could be the moon, for example. But some great examples are within architecture, and I think it's like the simplest way to see shape for what it actually is. But we want to be comparing everything in a way, not just to architecture. Shape is in multiple everything, really. Let's continue on with looking at images within photographs of inspiration. So we'll start with harmony again. This image here of Steve McCurry, again a great example of using shape. Rectangles within the door, rectangles of the colour blocks within the wall, rectangles of the shapes in the chairs. This image here, iconic one of Ava Dawn's again. We've got the same shapes within the flowers on her jacket, coat, along with the eye makeup as well. You do have consistency within the earrings as well. Harmony within that, likewise. I don't know who the photographer is for this, but the circles of the glasses are also in harmony with the dominating circle of the ring. In comparison, Ethan, again, great with shapes. This image here was such an incredible day again on set, but the shape of the dress itself, which was just kind of hilarious to see her walking in, but is in contrast to her upper body there as well. And she is just such a fun person. Phoebe, wow, what a cool day on set it was. It poured with rain, snowed that afternoon. We're out sort of putting diffusion on all corners of the bus and just sort of having a good day. It was a great setup. As you can see, the rain came through and it was blimmin' cold, to say the least. I can't say I was on for this one, but again, just a great example of shape. So we've got a little bit of a round belly from the boy on the left, and then sort of the leanness of the girl on the right, some right angles within her as well. More great examples of him using shape. We've got circles within the wheels of the bike and rectangles of the background of architecture as well. Mikkel, we've some examples of shape here. Because it's so dominating in two tones, black and white, it feels like a circular within what she's wearing, but the other lighter tone and shape that I see within this is the road itself. You've got like a triangle in there. Harley Ware here, rhymes. Another cool example of contrasting in shapes. So you've got a square of the images, but there's curvatures within the lines of the body shape as well. So just a wee example there. Unknown in this image, squares of the top and then flat lines and circulars of the hats itself. This image here of David's, you've got the circles at the top and the balloons in contrast to the squares of the cars that you see from down below. Robert Frank's image here, he's used a circle to cover the face, which is in contrast to the squares of the sign behind. Also there's a shape within the V-neck of her vest that she's wearing, and also there's a square and rectangles within the glass. Lots going on in regards to shape within the image. Likewise, this image here of Steve McCurry's. So many different shapes. You've got a V within the white of the neck, you've got circles within the decorations on the face, the hair, lines within the top itself. You know, there's so many variables of shape within that, and he utilizes it every scene to its advantage within shape. You know, this image here is very powerful. Be the star and the rectangles of the colours and the window itself, it's all in contrast to each other, and it tells a story on its own accords. Next we're going to go on to size. I'm going to speed these up a bit because this video is getting a little bit lengthy. Again guys, let me know your thoughts. Do you care if they're too lengthy? I know it's a whole different ball game. Just let me know what you guys are liking, and as you can tell, I like to waffle on a little bit. But size, when we are looking at size, harmony within size are two things which are of the same size. Contrast, obviously, within that is when you have something that is really small and then something that's really large. A great example is, you know, the scene I had earlier with the shapes here are quite similar, and you've got a small one in the front and a dominating one in the background. Obviously, two different scales. Again, within architecture, windows are of the same size or in differences throughout. Even the Barbican Towers here are a great example of size differences. You see it on skylines everywhere. Harmony within size is like this example here of Allen. You've got architecture using a great example again. The different facades are quite similar within shapes, and it's just the differences in size. Bolan's image here, similarly small TVs, big TVs, not much to explain there. Derek's image here, you've got shapes within the glasses, and then within his earring, or missing earring I guess, is the similar sort of shape of a different size. Ethan's image here, you've got squares of the bricks in the background in contrast to the squares of the bricks on the ground and the suit that he's wearing. So all the same shapes, but they're all just of different sizes. Likewise here, Kim, the umbrellas are all of different sizes, be it foreground, background, or even above the head. In contrast, we've got a very famous image here from Richard of all these heads, which are all different sizes, not much to explain there. You kind of get the gist of it. It's easy to break down images. Here you've got image of a circle in the foreground, and it can be in comparison to be it the circular of the buttons, the head, or the shadows, or, you know, there's several different things in here which represent circle. Shara's image here, squares within the foreground of the fashion being worn and within the building in the background. Bruce Gilden, great image here of two people, similar in shape and form, just different in size. Mark Cooper's image here, great example of size difference between squares, rectangles, and shapes. All similar shapes, but the sizes are of different comparisons. Another powerful image here from Steve, again, the size of the bullet holes in the wall, and then even the young one, the imperfections on her face are all of different size as well. And another powerful image here of Steve's. What a photographer, what an experience, what a life he's lived. Wow. Again, just, you know, the size of the camels in comparison to even the fires going on in the background. So the last one we need to look at is value. Value is determining, I guess, the density of like how light or dark something actually is. Choose a colour, for example, in this instance white. Harmony is when most of the image is white, and a contrast in value is when you, in this example, have something quite evenly split over across the image. Lots of light and lots of dark. So quick example here of seeing it out in nature. A water fountain at Barbican, it was just showing the different splashes and sort of density within the tones. So straight into it here with harmony and value, we're looking at Vivian's image here. The reason, yes, there's different tonal colours within it, but they're all quite muted. There's no bright hot spots, there's no deep dark spots either. They're all kind of within that same spectrum of value within tone. Likewise, Mario's image here, tonally, within the grayscale, like everything's pretty condensed within that grayscale. There's no brights, there's no darks. Alexi's image here, just this beautiful dress which has, you know, that muted toneness, and nothing is quite outstanding within the spectrum there. Likewise, this Adidas shot, don't know who shot it, but tonally, again, you know, everything is very similar. Likewise here, Christian's image, again, similar tones within, and when you mix that in contrast with value, this image here of Robert Franks, you can see the difference straight away of some darks and bright whites within a image, and how powerful and what a kind of different look it gives. Vivian's image here, you've got, you know, the bright whites within the newspaper, the darks within the rest of the image. Gary's image here, again, you've got some bright hot spots and some dark tones as well. Likewise, Mario doing it here with fashion, the white hat, the black coat. I love Jill Sander campaigns, you know, using the bright hotspot as the cloud and the lake, and his figure is more of the darker tones. Emlet Newton, great example of this shot here. You've got your brights, your darks, which is what value is all about. Same again within Richard. Black and whites really do emphasize the differences within tones. George again here using it to its full advantage. A white outfit, black background. Lachlan doing it here as well, sort of emphasizing her outfit within the white sculpture, creating that tonal difference. A lot of different examples there. I know this video has been quite long, and I guess I didn't expect it to be so long. It sort of helps you guys see how you can see it out in nature, out in the real environment, along with sort of how to apply that to different sort of inspirational images, and sort of break down how to take a better photograph for you guys selves, and to sort of get an understanding of what a design element is, how to apply that to your own imagery, and to understand the differences between contrast and harmony. There's a lot to take in, as always, when on a journey of understanding a new topic, and photography is most definitely still one of those. Sort of challenge yourself, and sort of there's a lot to take in within it, and I do think it is a incredible passion to really learn and try and understand yourself. I've been doing it a few years now, and I'm still sort of learning and understanding for myself. This channel is very new to me, and especially doing tutorials is something I've never done. I did try and do a tutorial maybe 7 years ago. I don't know, it was a long time ago. Just putting myself in front of the camera, freaked out, and just couldn't, kind of just focused on assisting for a few years, and well, learning photography and then assisting, and then sort of working my way through Australia and New York, and now I'm here in London. We're all on our own different paths and journeys, and I think what you guys need to really just grasp is just to get out there and take your own photographs, and not really listen to everyone else's judgment. You know, everyone has their own opinions, their own experiences, which is going to change the way that they view, you know, your imagery in comparison to the next person's. So there is no right and wrong, especially within photography. You guys, for wanting to learn more and experience more, and just encourage you guys to get out there and make the most of it. So tag me on Instagram with any new images that you guys have been out there, and sort of what you learned from this video. I'd love to see you guys actually out there implementing it, and hearing what you guys enjoyed the most out of all this. Give me a thumbs up if you feel as though you learned something from this. Yeah, follow the journey on Instagram and YouTube, and spread the word, guys, because it means a lot to me. Guys, keep it up and stay tuned for some more. Yay, first one done, yay! Thank you so much for watching this YouTube video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, before you head away, I'd love for you guys to look at the preset packs I have available. If you can't see the difference between the raw images here and a click of a preset, head over to my store for a free preset sample to download and apply for yourself. There is a link in the description below, as well as within the YouTube banner. And while you're at it, guys, don't forget to subscribe.